Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hundreds of veterans are volunteering to attend immigration hearings with Afghan asylum seekers. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. KPBS military reporter Andrew Dyer says the effort is in response to the arrest of a former military translator at his San Diego asylum hearing.
In the last week, more than 200 veterans have volunteered to attend immigration court alongside Afghans who worked with the U.S. during its 20-year occupation of Afghanistan.
In our most recent survey of our membership, over 72% of post 9/11 veterans believe that we need to be doing more for our Afghan allies.
Kylan Hunter is the CEO of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America.
And this isn't political, this is personal for many of us. These are the people that we served with.
The effort to recruit veterans stems from the June 12th arrest of Syed Nasser at a scheduled asylum hearing. The government moved to dismiss his case, and when he left the courtroom, ICE agents were waiting. Syed is being held at the Otay Mesa Immigration Detention Facility. Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware talked about the case at a news conference today.
This is one of the most heartbreaking betrayals of the Trump administration. He followed the rules. He came here appropriately. He is someone who should not be facing imminent deportation to another country.
The Department of Homeland Security said on social media the government doesn't have evidence Syed worked with the U.S. in Afghanistan. Sean Van Diver is co-founder and president of Afghan EVAC, a nonprofit that helps resettle Afghans.
DHS has said that Syed was not vetted. DHS has said there's no evidence that Syed served alongside our country. Both of those things are lies, knowable lies. They know that they're not telling the truth.
On Friday, KPBS sent DHS a list of questions about the case. They haven't replied. Retired Air Force Lieutenant General John Bradley runs another nonprofit that supports Afghans. He says the U.S. owes more to the Afghans trying to resettle here.
We didn't do any missions there without support from Afghan people like Syed, interpreters who were essential for every single mission we went on, because we needed interpreters to help us with many parts of the missions. They put their lives at risk, just like our American soldiers and Marines on the ground did. They are important to us. This is a mutual trust issue. It's a national security issue, because this will damage our national reputation.
Jessica Bradley Rushing works with Afghan EVAC, but before that, she helped run the State Department's Afghan Relocation Office during the Biden administration. She says DHS's claims that unvetted Afghans are in the U.S. aren't true.
Syed was vetted when he came across the border. But we also know that there are not a whole host of Afghans throughout the country who are here who were unvetted. Afghans who came here through Enduring Welcome are the most vetted population of immigrants in our nation's history. There are multiple rounds of vetting that take place, including before anyone was ever relocated out of Afghanistan.
Syed's attorney says he'll next undergo a credible fear interview with an asylum agent who'll decide whether he meets the criteria to reapply for asylum. That interview hasn't been scheduled, and Syed remains in custody. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
A witness to a local ICE arrest in Mission Valley is talking about what she experienced. A video from Thursday morning outside the Handlery Hotel was widely circulated on social media. The woman has since been released and is required to wear an ankle monitor while waiting for a future court date. A person who was there that morning is choosing to remain anonymous. She describes the arrest and how the woman is recovering.
Since they looked like normal people, no uniforms, no badges, I asked them, "Do you have a warrant? Why are you taking her?" And all they said was, "Don't interfere, don't interfere." She's very shaken by all this. She hasn't stopped crying. We're all human beings, we're people, and she didn't deserve this. Nobody does.
The Department of Homeland Security provided a statement to our news partner 10 News. The statement says the woman was arrested for being in the U.S. after entry without inspection.
Well, overall, it's been a pretty mild start to the week. Temperatures overnight dropping down into the mid-60s. We do have some clouds out there, and we're going to see some changes in the temperatures throughout the week. I'll break down exactly what to expect coming up.
After clearing a key hurdle over the weekend, it's crunch time for President Donald Trump's massive tax and spending bill. Karen Kafer reports Republicans on Capitol Hill are scrambling to meet the president's July 4th deadline.
It will be a marathon in the time frame of a sprint on Capitol Hill this week after Senate Republicans worked through the weekend and inched ahead on this mega bill that includes many of President Trump's domestic policy priorities. Still, there is work to be done. A weekend Senate vote was a vote to move ahead with the bill. The GOP saw just 2 defections, a no vote from Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, who objects to how much the legislation will add to the federal debt, and another from Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina, who objects to the depth of the cuts to Medicaid. After President Trump lashed out on Tillis at social media, the North Carolina Republican said he won't run for re-election next year, hinting he'll also be a no on final passage. A scoring by the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office underscored the concerns of both flanks of Republicans who have expressed doubt about the bill and how challenging it may be to reconcile them. The CBO said the Senate version of the bill will add $3.3 trillion to the federal deficit over the next decade, more than the House version, and drawing the attention of fiscal conservatives. And for moderates concerned about cuts to Medicaid, the CBO estimated nearly 12 million more Americans will be uninsured by 2034, again, more than the House version. On Monday morning, the Senate kicked off what's known as a vote-a-rama, a marathon voting session where senators can offer as many amendments as they want to vote on before a final vote on the bill. And after a final vote, the Senate-approved version still needs to go back to the House for a final vote. Remember that July 4th deadline was imposed by the president, so there's no real pressing need for it to be met other than the president's insistence. At the White House, I'm Karen Kafer.
Time is running out to vote in a special election for the county's first supervisorial district. Today is the last chance for early voting, and tomorrow is the last day to cast a ballot. An additional 6 voting centers will be open tomorrow for a total of 13. All will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And the top 2 candidates in the race are Democratic Imperial Beach Mayor Paloma Aguirre and Republican Chula Vista Mayor John McCann. KPBS South Bay reporter Corey Suzuki sat down with both earlier this month. He says they have sharply different views on immigration policy.
Whoever wins the District 1 race will likely make some major decisions on immigration. The 5-member Board of Supervisors votes on sanctuary policies and funding for the county's Immigrant Legal Defense Program, which provides free legal representation to people facing deportation in San Diego County. John McCann is a Republican and the mayor of Chula Vista. He opposes the county's current sanctuary policies and says he would look at cutting legal aid to reduce spending.
If, again, we need to look at cutting, that might be somewhere we would have to. I believe that we should be supporting the citizens first over people who are not citizens.
Running against McCann is Paloma Aguirre, a Democrat and the mayor of Imperial Beach. She says the sheriff should have had more input on the county's sanctuary policies, but she strongly supports funding for legal aid.
We're seeing even citizens being deported. At what point, where does that stop? If we don't have the legal representation, what if somebody doesn't have the resources to pay for a lawyer, for example?
If you live in District 1, the last day to cast your ballot is July 1st. Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
You can find out more about the special election candidates, where to vote, and whether you live in the District 1 on our website. Just go to kpbs.org/voterhub. In Southeast San Diego, activists and police celebrated a modest victory in the fight against gun violence. KPBS reporter Thomas Fudge joined the gathering today on Skyline Drive.
The drop in violent crime prompted an optimistic and spiritual message today, typified by Pastor Jesus Sandoval, who leads a congregation in Southeast San Diego.
We have a little slogan: we went from gangs to God, from the streets to salvation, and from dope to hope. That's right. And it's all for the honor and the glory of the Lord.
A statistic taken from San Diego police report shows that non-fatal shootings in the Southeast Police Division dropped by 54% between 2023 and 2024. At the press conference, activist Shane Harris and Bishop Cornelius Bowser signed a proclamation that Southeast San Diego is one of the safest areas in San Diego. It has had a reputation for gang violence that residents want to dispel.
Thank you.
Police Captain Joanna Makwana, who serves the Southeast Division, said cooperation with community nonprofits is the basis of violence prevention.
These collaborations foster trust. They open up lines of communication, enable us to respond to violence as a united front.
Crime statistics from the SDPD show many other crimes followed the same downward trend during the same period of time. Following the crime increases of the pandemic, San Diego crime rates have dropped again to make it one of America's safest big cities. Between 2023 and 2024, the murder rate also declined, and non-fatal shootings dropped citywide. Bowser is a former Crips gang member from San Diego who became a minister. He says drops in crime rates are a reason to celebrate.
But this is just the beginning. As we look to the future, I believe the next vital steps is to build upon this foundation of peace by fostering economic opportunity that can sustain and deepen our progress.
Bowser told me that while there is over-policing in black communities like Southeast, under-policing is not the answer to crime. He said the people in Southeast San Diego do believe they need the police, even when they don't really trust the police. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the News Hour, the latest twists and turns in the effort to pass President Trump's big budget bill. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
This year marks 35 years since the Americans with Disabilities Act became law. KPBS education reporter Katie Anastas says students, faculty, and advocates at Southwestern College are celebrating by waving the disability pride flag.
Miguel Morales was in his senior year of high school when he started getting frequent headaches. He went to the doctor and had surgery to remove a brain tumor that night.
Transitioning from my high school to college was extremely difficult for me because I battled with my sense of self-worth. I was so depressed. I didn't really know how to do anything.
After years of therapy, he was ready to go to college. Southwestern College provides accommodations like giving him double time to take exams. He also uses an AI app to transcribe lectures into notes so he doesn't have to type. Over time, he says he embraced being part of the disabled community.
Once I started to realize that, hey, they're just like me, they've endured what I've endured, they're just other versions of me, I started seeing, like, this is great, I actually like this. I'm not going to see them as just something to get from. This is something I want to give back to and be part of.
On Monday, Southwestern College celebrated that community by raising the disability pride flag for the first time. Melinda Lara directs the college's disability support services.
When we look at national data, about 20% of students are disabled. They may not all be receiving accommodations, but they're on campus. When we look locally at California throughout all of our community colleges, we're hovering between 5 to 10% of our disabled students actually receiving accommodations. And so there's a big disparity, right, about who's getting served and who's not getting served.
Laura says some students arrive at Southwestern College already with a diagnosis. Others might take learning disability tests after they enroll.
The goal with us is to really teach those advocacy skills to students so that way they're prepared to have those conversations with their instructors to ensure that they can have their accommodations met.
She hopes raising the disability pride flag brings courage to people with new diagnoses, reminds disabled students about the accommodations available to them, and brings together a strong community. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
Well, San Diego will allow marijuana shops to expand their hours of operation. This afternoon, City Council gave final approval for a new daily schedule, and that new schedule is from 6 a.m. until 10 p.m. So the current operating hours are 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Advocates say that the change will allow San Diego shops to match neighboring cities. Money is also a consideration here. The city anticipates that the extra hours will generate nearly $2 million in additional tax revenue for the upcoming fiscal year. And this is the last news anyone would like to hear, especially ahead of a busy week for travel. But gas prices in California are going up. There are two factors driving up those costs. One, the gas tax that will raise the price per gallon by about 1.5 cents. The other is California's low carbon fuel standard. Is a little harder to predict. The Senate actually approved the gas tax back in 2017, and that called for a 12-cent hike over several years to go toward road repairs across the state. The good news, though, gas is cheaper right now than it was a year ago.
We are paying around between 20 and 25 cents less than a year ago, which means drivers are definitely going to pay less for gas than what they did a year ago for this 4th of July holiday.
Look at the gas prices today, and this is according to AAA. The average price for regular is $4.63. That is the lowest since February. The average price has dropped 5.5 cents over the past week. And July 4th travel will be one for the record books. AAA estimates more than 72 million people will be traveling 50 miles or more this week. Jen Sullivan has details on the best and the worst times to travel this holiday week.
As our nation gets ready to celebrate Independence Day, travelers are being warned to brace for heavy traffic on the roads and long lines at airports. AAA estimates more than 72 million people will travel 50 miles or more this week. That's a new record.
Part of the reason for that is because July 4th falls on a Friday this year, so that gives people that long holiday.
AAA spokesperson Kellen Howell says the group started recording July 4th travel from June 28th, as many people took the entire week off for the holiday. They estimate most people will be driving to their destination, with roughly 62 million people on the roads.
If you're leaving after 11 a.m. or after lunchtime, you are very likely going to sit in traffic.
The busiest road travel times will be Wednesday, July 2nd between noon and 9 p.m. and Sunday, July 6th between noon and 6 p.m., according to INRIX, which provides transportation data. If you're flying this week, TSA recommends arriving to the airport early. 18.5 million people are expected to fly between Tuesday, July 1st and Monday, July 7th. Here's the good news. Gas prices are down.
Gas prices are much lower than we have seen in recent years, about 20 cents lower than they were this time last year.
As of Monday, the average price for a gallon of regular gas was $3.19. That's 3 cents cheaper than a week ago. For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
As you plan activities for the upcoming July 4th holiday, health experts say to be aware of a new COVID-19 variant that is spreading. Mandy Gaither has what to know about the new variant and the defining symptom it's most commonly causing in those who are infected.
It's related to the Omicron variant. NB181, nicknamed Nimbus, is spreading in the U.S., now causing more than 40% of COVID-19 cases, according to the latest CDC data.
It is a little bit more infectious and contagious than kind of the last couple of versions that we have seen before. So we're seeing a pretty rapid rise in the number of cases related to Nimbus.
Dr. Carrie Horn with National Jewish Health says as people gather to celebrate the July 4th holiday, there's an increased chance for the virus to spread even more. She says in addition to the symptoms with previous variants like fever, runny nose and congestion, some shortness of breath, cough, and body aches, the defining symptom for this variant is what she calls a razor blade sore throat.
It is really intense and it can last for a couple of days. And it's even as bad as like when you're just swallowing your saliva, just normal swallowing. It doesn't have to be with food or liquids or anything. just super intense pain.
To slow the spread of this variant, Horn says to stay home if you're having symptoms. If you do go out, wear a mask and continue washing hands. If you're at high risk of getting severely sick, she recommends getting the updated COVID-19 vaccine.
The real benefit of the vaccine is keeping people out of the hospital, preventing severe illness and death. So anybody who's high risk, I strongly recommend getting the vaccine.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
And if you test positive for COVID-19 and are immunocompromised, Dr. Horn says to see a healthcare provider who can prescribe antivirals. She says it's also to be aware of the sore throat symptom in children. They could have strep throat instead of COVID-19, and that's treated differently with antibiotics.
Well, overall this week, we're going to see a little bit of a cooling trend for most of us. Now, midweek, the marine layer that we've been dealing with, that is going to deepen. So clouds, low clouds, fog, that's going to move a little bit farther inland compared to where it's been the last couple of days. Now, as we look ahead to the holiday weekend, temperatures are going to rebound back to about where we should be this time of year when we talk about historical averages. Tonight, though, we're dropping down into the 50s and the 60s, 54 in Ramona there, 76, though, for Borrego Springs, 64 for San Diego. You'll notice closer to the coast, that's where we have the clouds. Farther inland into our mountain and desert regions, it is a clear night overall. Taking a look at tomorrow, it's the same trend as far as the clouds. Temperatures are going to be in the 90s for Ramona. We're into the triple digits once again for Borrego Springs, 74 in Oceanside, 73 in San Diego there. Now, we do have a couple of changes on the way. Now, farther inland into the southwest, we are going to be seeing some rain and some thunderstorms. It should stay dry and clear for us. That's not really going to develop for Southern California, but we do have some of the clouds that we'll be dealing with throughout the week. Temperature-wise, you can see we bounce around a little bit during the week, 73, 74, not much of a difference. You're not going to notice it either way, but by the time we get to the weekend, that's when we drop down to 72. Now, everywhere else, it's a little bit of a different trend. So further inland, we go from 83 Tuesday down to 80 for Thursday. Then we rebound back up to 82 for Friday. Still, it's very small differences here, right? Just a few degrees. You probably won't even notice a difference. Overall, it's a mild week ahead. Into the mountains, this is where we see some of the bigger temperature changes. We're at 77 for your Tuesday. We drop down to 69 for your Wednesday. By the time we get to Friday, Saturday, well, Friday we rebound back up into the 70s, 79. By the time we get to Saturday, a little bit of a temperature roller coaster. Not as much change here in the desert region. 111 for your Tuesday. Then we're down to 105, 102, 104 Friday and Saturday, 104 Friday for the 4th of July there. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather's Anna Azalian.
Now, before we get to our final story, an important reminder. Today is the final day to file property taxes without incurring a penalty. San Diego County Treasurer Tax Collector says unpaid bills will go into default and receive an additional $33 redemption fee plus penalties of 1.5% each month. And if you haven't yet, you still have time to pay. You could do that online at sdttc.com, or you can call by phone 855-829-3773, or also you can do it by mail with a payment postmarked before or on July 1st. Well, do you need a vacation after your vacation? Whether it's a week away or just a long weekend, do you find yourself feeling more drained than recharged once you return home? Michael Yoshida has tips on how to feel more rejuvenated during and after your summer escapes.
From overplanning to poor sleep to other imbalances, we wanted to find out some of the things that might have you feeling more exhausted upon returning from that supposedly relaxing vacation.
Craving a post-vacation vacation? You might not be alone.
We're tired because we continue our work life and that work lifestyle on vacation.
Instead of relaxing, it can be tempting to overschedule, to try and see all of the tourist sites or do all of the resort's activities and more.
We just continue working. It's just a different kind of work. I have to see this cathedral. I have to, walk down this road, eat at this restaurant. And next thing you know, you're not resting, you're still working.
Jordan Barber, a doctor of acupuncture and oriental medicine, says learn to embrace unstructured relaxation. Have a to-do list, but also be okay just going with the flow and listening to your body. Other things to do to keep your stress in check. 1. Keep your hormones in balance with consistent meal and sleep timing. 2. Get early morning sun exposure to naturally boost your energy and reset your circadian rhythm. 3. Hydrate. You might be vacationing in a warmer climate or eating more processed sodium-filled foods than you're used to. And finally, when it comes to meals, enjoy your vacation, but also try to eat more magnesium and potassium-rich foods, dark leafy greens, avocados, bananas, pumpkin seeds, and more to calm your nervous system.
It's okay to eat, at the restaurant that you want to eat at that might be a little processed or anything else, and to drink a little more, but make sure that hydration is up. But make sure that you're getting your magnesium, potassium-rich foods.
And another thing Barbara says is important is not to rush back into your work or busy lifestyle. If you have the time and ability to do so, don't fly back late the night before or early the morning of your first day back at work. Give yourself some time to adapt before putting those stress hormones back on high gear. In Washington, I'm Michael Yoshida reporting.
Some good tips to keep in mind there. So here's a look at what we are working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Tomorrow marks the official end of U.S. aid, the federal department that administered civilian foreign aid and development assistance. All remaining programs are being transferred to the State Department. More on that on NPR's Morning Edition. And as the final ballots are cast in the District 1 special election, a lot of claims have been made against the top 2 candidates. Our South Bay reporter, Corey Suzuki, joins KPBS Midday Edition to separate the fact from the fiction. And you can get the latest from KPBS delivered right into your inbox. We have a variety of newsletters that you can choose from, and that includes the daily headlines, KPBS Arts, streaming picks, as well as our North County focus. You can go to kpbs.org and look for the newsletter section on the top of your screen. And from there, you can sign up with your email address. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: by viewers like you. Thank you.